Irish leader Michael Martin in a conversation which will focus on growth and national security.
Well, meanwhile, it's reported Chancellor Rachel Reeves is planning billions of pounds of cuts to benefits and other public spending ahead of this month's spring statement. Joining us to discuss this is the Industry Minister, Sarah Jones. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
So, Keir Starmer meeting the Irish Taoiseach. Is Ireland joining the coalition of the willing?
So the Taoiseach, I think, is meeting President Trump next week. This is the first in what will become an annual summit with Ireland. Obviously, they're a very close ally. We trade with them a lot. And of course, security will be front and centre in this summit. But we are talking about many other things as well, not least 2,500 jobs that are going to be created through Irish investment into the UK.
Something is happening inside Westminster, and the silence from Labour's top figures is deafening. Rachel Reeves, the shadow chancellor who was supposed to bring economic stability to Britain, is now at the centre of a growing storm that could shake the very foundations of Keir Starmer's government.
Well, we'll set out our plans for welfare reform, but it is absolutely clear that the current system is not working for anyone. It is not working for people who need support. It's not working to get people into work so that more people can fulfil their potential. And it's not working for the taxpayer when the bill for welfare is going up by billions of pounds in the next.
The whispers behind closed doors are getting louder, and they all point to one shocking reality. The Bank of England wants her gone. And will Starmer put his neck on the line for her, as he did in the past? It is incredible, because just when you thought things couldn't get worse, the Labour government has a way of surprising you. It's no longer just rumours that senior figures within Britain's most powerful financial institution are openly questioning whether Reeves is fit to handle the economy, and the cracks in Labour's leadership are beginning to show. Interestingly, the Bank of England has always tried to stay out of political drama, but that's changing fast. The UK economy is spiralling, inflation remains high, and businesses are losing confidence by the day. Reeves was supposed to steady the ship, but instead, the bank's senior officials are reportedly losing faith in her ability to get back to its inflation target of 2%.
Effectively, what that statement said was more likely to be 3 rate increases required over the course of the next few years than 2, first point. Second, if the economy evolved broadly in line with the committee's forecast, that would be required. And what happened was the economy did not, in the first quarter, evolve broadly in line with our forecast. Inflation came in lower, economic momentum, a number of signs were lower, and then ultimately the hard data came in lower as well. And we as a committee stepped back, looked at that data, and took our own assessments. Now, some of us were comfortable with raising interest rates at that May meeting. Others of us, myself included, thought it made sense to take a bit of time to see that the momentum that we expect as a committee in our forecast, the momentum.
Some sources even suggest that discussions have already begun on how to bypass her entirely, an unprecedented move that would send a clear message to the public. This is a clear indication that Labour's economic plan is failing, and with Starmer standing firmly by her side, refusing to make a move. But the big question is why? What is he so afraid of, and could this crisis take both of them down? However, hold on, because this is where things take a truly shocking turn.
In another seemingly crushing blow to Britain, the economy unexpectedly shrank by 0.1% in January, increasing fears that we could be slipping our way towards recession later this year. Now, the figures come ahead of the Chancellor's spring statement, which is expected to include government spending cuts. And here's what Conservative frontbencher Robert Jenrick told GB News earlier today.
No, I don't think this is unexpected at all, frankly. This is a result of the political decisions that were taken by Rachel Reeves in her disastrous budget last year by hiking taxes on working people and businesses across the country. They've killed growth. The last Conservative government left this one, the fastest growing economy in the G7.
Well, let's pick this conversation up now in the studio. I'm delighted to say I'm joined on this Friday afternoon by GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome to the studio. We were told
For months, Labour has insisted that Britain's finances are stretched to the limit, with no money for tax cuts, no relief for small businesses, and no extra funding for essential services. That's been the message from Reeves and Starmer since day one, but new reports have just exposed the truth. £600 million sterling has been quietly poured into asylum seekers' support programmes. A staggering figure that Labour hoped would go unnoticed, and the moment it was revealed, the backlash was instant. People are furious. The public is asking the one question Reeves and Starmer don't want to answer. If there's no money, why is there always money for this raised from the government?
I've been an MP for 14 years and all of them, and apart from the last 3.5 weeks, have been in opposition. This is definitely the best 3.5 weeks of my political career because for the first time I've actually been able to do things rather than just say them.
The reason why will shock you. While British families struggle with rising costs and businesses crumble under Labour's tax hikes, the government is quietly funneling billions into a system that isn't even helping its own citizens. And Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor in charge of the country's finances, is standing by these decisions.
Incredibly concerning, the forecasts from the Bank of England about the contraction of the economy and that we are already potentially in recession. Families are already incredibly worried about what's happening in the economy with higher prices for everything and no economic growth to be seen. The government have had 12 years and what have we...
She's refusing to acknowledge the backlash, refusing to justify the spending, and now she's facing the consequences because this isn't just about policy anymore, it's about trust. For most people, they are thinking if Reeves and Starmer are being dishonest about this, what else were they hiding? And more importantly, how long before Labour's entire credibility collapses?
So this week, Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves doubled down on the removal of winter fuel allowances for about 10 million pensioners, many of whom will be cold over the winter, too afraid to switch the heating on as energy companies prepare to rack up their prices by 10%, which is odd, really, because when the Tories were in charge, the Labour Party's own research when they were in opposition suggested that just under 4,000 pensioners would die if the Tories went ahead with the exact same plan. Are old people expendable now, Rachel? Or is there some research somewhere that says otherwise? Oh, sorry, I forgot, you didn't do any other research on the effects of this policy, so we'll just have to take your word for it that 4,000 pensioners will die, but hey-ho, there's a black hole and we've got a plan. And what, to put the pensioners in it? What was that? Difficult decisions?
We're going to have to take the tough decisions and take them early, and we will. Part of that is being honest with people about the choices that we face.
First, the budget last October, which has turned out to be a real drag on the economy, though the bank is not blunt enough to say so. It's quite a damning critique of Rachel Reeves' economic policy to date. But there is more.
More interesting, I think, is what's developing this afternoon about these expenses issues. Now, the BBC say that whistleblowers say that there were three managers using the bank's money to fund a lifestyle that the BBC say was inappropriate spending on dinner, events, taxes and gifts.
And when was this? Back in time?
Yes, when she was at bank,
There are multiple allegations which stretch far and wide involving Reeves and the Bank of England. First, there's the matter of her tenure at the Bank of England. Official records indicate that Reeves served from September 2000 to March 2006. However, discrepancies emerged when her LinkedIn profile erroneously extended this period to December 2006. Critics argue that such inaccuracies, whether intentional or not, raise questions about her attention to detail and transparency. While her team attributed this to an administrative oversight, opponents are quick to seize upon any inconsistency as evidence of a broader pattern of embellishment. But the plot thickens.
When we're in some of the most senior roles in our country, when we're putting our trust in those people, and even more so when it was a party who said that trust had been lost in the Tories and they were going to have a clear out and they were going to bring a new type of politics.
OK, let's throw that over to Kelly Tucker.
I mean, I do hear what's being said there. However, I think there's a difference between a lie and exaggerating the truth. Rachel Reeves, she did hold that position, not as long as she has made believe. And she has since updated her CV to reflect the accurate date. So I think it's a stretch too far to say that that's a sackable offence. I think we should be being honest. And yes, our CV should reflect the truth. But I think there is a difference between lying and exaggerating the truth.
OK, Mike, do you see the difference there?
Absolutely not. A stretching of the truth is a lie. An exaggerating of the truth is a lie. I mean, the reality is it's not the truth. And when you go to court and you put your hand on that Bible, what do they ask you to say? I swear to tell the whole truth.
During her subsequent role at HBOS, allegations surfaced regarding a cavalier attitude towards expense reports, suggesting that Reeves, along with 2 other managers, was implicated in an internal investigation concerning the misuse of company funds for personal gifts, including a £152,000 sterling expenditure on a handbag and perfume for her superior.
You know, you want to have a chancellor who's credible, and that means both with the markets and the wider public as well. So it's very difficult, I think, for Labour to have these claims out there. And you see this as well. You got to remember, Kevin, it's not just this about the CV, it's also about the book that came out last year. Labour's shadow chancellor made a huge thing at the time about, you know, women who are being rewritten back into history, whose contribution to economics had not been properly recognised. And then it turns out this book, after all, was plagiarised. And of course, that was the very irony of the whole thing, was that, first of all, she couldn't spell their names right. Angela Rayner was spelled with an O rather than an E. And second of all, she was miscrediting their work.
Although no formal disciplinary action was documented, the mere existence of such inquiries casts a long shadow over her claims of fiscal responsibility. Amidst these personal controversies, Reeves faces mounting political pressure.
Growth is higher wages. Growth is a more vibrant high street. Growth is public services back on their feet. It's less poverty, more opportunity, more meals out, more holidays, more precious moments with your family, more cash in your pocket. And of course, for any business, it means a bigger market, higher demand, a more secure and prosperous future. Your effort and enterprise rewarded in profit.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer remains steadfast in his commitment to stringent fiscal rules, despite growing calls from within the party to relax these constraints to avert severe welfare cuts. The proposed £6 billion sterling reduction in welfare spending, particularly targeting disability benefits like the personal independence payment, has ignited a firestorm of dissent among Labour MPS.
Because at the end of the day, you've got Rachel from Accounts, who's been promoted to Chancellor of the Exchequer. You know, you've got this is just so laughable that don't forget the entire cabinet have only ever worked in the public sector.
That is a really good point.
And the thing is also that people who work in the public sector, some of them work and some of them don't really.
Well, it's not so much that they see their job as the purchasing managers of the company, right? They don't. They're just there to buy things and spend things. The sales side of the business, the private sector, they just assume that the salespeople and everyone's out there generating wealth for the company or the country, and they can spend all this money. But what they don't realise is all those salespeople, the workers in the private sector, are all about to get laid off.
This revelation adds fuel to the fire, suggesting a broader culture within Labour's upper echelons, where personal narratives are at times embellished or misrepresented. As the Bank of England grapples with soaring inflation and a stagnating economy, its confidence in the current economic leadership, while insiders hint at unprecedented measures contemplating actions independent of the Chancellor's directives, signalling a profound distrust in Reeves' stewardship.
And the truth is, if you stunt growth by cutting government spending, by discouraging businesses to invest, and by allowing productivity to stagnate, you choke off the growth that we need to raise living standards, but also that we need to reduce our budget deficit and pay back the national debt. This has been a failed experiment for 10 years on austerity, and we are all, frankly, Madam Deputy Speaker, paying the price.
The damage to Britain's economy isn't just happening on paper. The impact is real and people are feeling it. Reeves' first budget was meant to stabilise the economy, but instead it triggered a massive loss of confidence in Britain's financial future. Inflation is still squeezing the working class. GDP growth forecasts have been slashed and investment in British businesses is drying up at an alarming rate, and the Bank of England has seen enough. However, here's what they're not telling you. Reports from inside Westminster suggest that top officials at the bank no longer trust Labour's economic strategy. Some have reportedly lost patience with Reeves completely, believing that she is actively making things worse with her policies, and behind the scenes, the discussions have already started on how they move forward without her. Could the Bank of England begin taking action on its own, ignoring Reeves entirely? If they do, it would be an unprecedented moment, a direct challenge to Labour's economic leadership, and a clear sign that Britain's financial elite no longer believe the government is in control. But instead of taking action by removing Reeves and bringing in a chancellor the markets can trust, Starmer is digging in his heels. He's protecting her, shielding her, and risking his own credibility to keep her in power. And this raises a massive question. Why, if Reeves is simply an incompetent chancellor, why wouldn't Starmer cut her loose and start fresh? Unless, of course, there's something much bigger at play. And here's where things get even stranger. Some sources inside Westminster believe Starmer's attachment to Reeves isn't just political, it's personal. There are growing whispers that if Reeves falls, she could take others with her. Removing her would not just expose economic failures, but could unravel something much more damaging to Labour's leadership. Can it be that keeping Reeves in power isn't about protecting Britain's economy at all, but about protecting secrets that Starmer can't afford to let slip? If you enjoyed this political firestorm, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating political content.